What is up, Sideboard Gaming family? This is your host, Caleb Williamson, and joining me today is...
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tim. We're back. What up?
We are back. That's right. How's it going, Tim?
Pretty good, man. Just came back from a pre-release. Been a couple of those this weekend. Coming back from Vegas for the calling, which we'll get into on this episode for sure. But it's been a cool weekend. What about you?
Good. I went to one pre-release with at Ender's Games. You were there. I took today off from pre-releases just to kind of catch up on some homework and stuff, and take a nap and that sort of thing. But it's been good, busy but good.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, also, I guess we can get it out of the way now. Shout out to Ender's Games, our channel sponsor. Definitely
Of course.
check them out online. endersgamesclovis.com, I believe.
Yep.
We'll have it linked in the description and stuff. Definitely check them out. Great store. Doing a lot for the Central Valley for Flesh and Blood, and I know a lot of other games too, so we appreciate you, JT.
Yes, we do. Of course. Yeah, so let's just get right into it. We just got back, as you said, from Vegas. So what exactly was that? I mean, we, came from Dragon Ball. We started playing Flesh and Blood. Now we're at this event. What was it?
Yeah, so what was it, a couple months ago now? We were in Vegas for a regional for Dragon Ball Super, which I know a lot of our viewers were with us for.
Yeah.
It was a cool event. Definitely was nice to get back to like in-person events. But I mean, I know we touched on it after that event in I think the last episode we did. There were just some things that didn't seem great going on with that game as a whole, and we were kind of looking for something different, something better as far as like organized play in the competitive route. And our sponsor, Enders, finally got me to try Flesh and Blood. JT had been asking me like since the game came out to check it out. Kept saying no. Come back from Vegas, kind of disappointed in how DBS is going as a game. I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a try. Let's see what the game's all about. Bought a Blitz deck, was like, wow, this is actually pretty sweet. And we went over to
You bought Chain, by the way.
I did. Our shop owner explained it as kind of like dredge, and as an older Magic player, I know what that meant. And then I was like, well, let me see what the character looks like. And I was like, he looks pretty cool, I'm in. I had no idea what I was buying, aka like best deck in the format. But yeah, we went to Dustin's that night, right, to hang out and play like board games and stuff.
Yeah, we went to Dustin's. Josh had bought the Levia Blitz deck.
Yeah, played some deck builders, hung out, played a couple games with you guys to show you the game, and then we just like dove in. Like next day, I think you bought a Blitz deck like the next day, right? And then we just started jamming, picking up singles and stuff.
Yeah, I bought
some random boxes.
Prism.
Yep. Yeah, it's honestly, it's been a blast. Like, there's so much depth to this game. Is like, even in a game that you lose, like it very rarely feels bad.
Yeah.
Unless you get like absolutely blown out, like super destroyed. You literally played 0 cards, but that doesn't happen that often.
Although it does happen.
It
sometimes.
Does. Been on both ends of it. But even then, like, it's cool to see like another deck like pop off to a level you didn't think it could. You're just like, that was absolutely busted, but it was kind of sweet, even though I got the bad end of it. It's still cool to see.
Right.
But like the game itself, very mechanically different from like anything I've ever played. It's got elements of some other stuff like the pitching from Final Fantasy. It's got a little bit of Magic feel to it here and there, but it's definitely its own game, and it felt kind of refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with the notes you made about the game itself, and our sort of exiting of DBS for the meantime. But so fast forward a little bit, we started playing 2 months ago, I would say.
Grinded non-stop testing for like 3 weeks, like literally every day.
Yeah, I think between you and I, we played, I would say, easily 250 games. I think by now we're at upwards of 500.
Oh yeah, easily. I probably have more experience playing against Prism and Bolton than like anybody else in this game. Because you and your brother, I was just grinding games non-stop for like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I haven't lost to a chain in a tournament yet.
You're welcome.
Anyways, so fast forward, we're playing Flesh and Blood, we're grinding super hard, we got all our cards that we need for decks and stuff like that, and then there's a big tournament coming up called a calling. So
yes,
instead of like a regional, they call it a calling. It's ran by Channel Fireball, and basically the Flesh and Blood community locally was like, hey, we're going, you guys should try and go. So we were like,
and
okay,
we kind of scrambled a little bit.
Well, I will try. I mean, we just got back. I was just starting a new job.
New job.
Yeah, new old new, because they shut down for COVID and then sold to new owners and all that sort of thing. And then school starting for my brother, who's a teacher, and so we were like, well, we'll figure it out. So we end up figuring it out, and we go to Vegas for the calling, the first calling in 2021, I think.
I think so. It's at least the first US one.
Right.
But also, you and your brother and most of the rest of our local group had never experienced like a large scale Channel Fireball event before. I had with Magic going to some of their GPs in the past. You guys had never experienced that. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so background for what I have experienced is Dragon Ball Z Panini regionals. Those were about 100 to 200 players, and then I also have experienced a few DBS regionals at 520, I think was like the max players. So a couple of 500 person events, which was pretty wild. And then like Tim was saying, Channel Fireball runs their events a little differently, which I'll expand on in just a minute. But just to give you a perspective, sealed on Friday night, which is, so typically events are like, oh hey, get in Friday, Saturday is day one, Sunday's day two, and that's kind of like whatever, right? Well, for this game, and for I guess Magic is the same way, Friday is actually an event, Saturday is main event, and then Sunday is day two / tons of side events. And so that's kind of what we were walking into, which I had never experienced before. And so the Friday event, which was the world premiere for Tales of Aria sealed, was 900 players. So that's like double the biggest event I've ever been to, almost.
Yeah, it was between 900 and 1,000. I don't remember the exact number. But
it was
the main event was like not that far off from that either, which is wild.
Yeah, the judges told me the main event was like 750.
Yeah, little over 750.
Yeah, and so going back into what I was going to expand on was in Dragon Ball, the 500 person events are 1 day of Swiss and then 1 day of Top Cut.
Mhm.
And so you would play 9, 10, 11 rounds of Swiss and literally like go to bed at 1 a.m. because you didn't finish Swiss until 12:30 and you started at like 9 a.m.
Supposed to start at 9, but actually start at 1.
Yeah, always starts late, and then wake up at like 7 to be at Top Cut by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Whereas Channel Fireball did it differently, which I haven't quite figured out my actual opinion on it. It was nice schedule-wise to only have, so they did 7 rounds of Swiss, and then a top 64 on day 2, which played 4 more rounds of Swiss, and then top 8 of that.
8, yeah.
So basically they just cut up Swiss, they cut it in half so that way they could like wean out a lot of basically the people that are going to drop once they get like an X whatever record. And they cut the top tables over to day 2 and continue out. That way the rest of the people can go play side events and that sort of thing. So
or the Pro Quest.
Yeah, the Pro Quest, which was the next day. So it was pretty cool, only being like, oh, we're in round 6. Well, there's only one more round. We're going to be done by like 8 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
It was pretty sweet.
I think it ended right around when our last side event did. Or the last side event. Yeah, like 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
But like still plenty of time to like go to dinner, go to bed at a reasonable time, or not. What's interesting though, because they used to do this with GPs, after they announced the top whatever for day 2, so in this case 64, if for GPs they would play one more round, so the first round of day 2 they would play right then, so then anybody who like loses that round can just drop and then have all of the next day for side events.
It's interesting.
Which was like I thought that was great, because then like it's 1 more hour, you're still done at 8, still really reasonable time to be done. And then the people that lose and are like, all right, well, I guess I'll do side events or the Pro Quest. They know what time they need to be there, and they don't have to like worry about trying to balance like winning 2 or 3 rounds of Swiss, or if they go 2 and 2, now they have to drop that and try to make like 1 side event that's left for the day.
Right.
So I think it would have been nice if they had stuck with that, but like it's the first like really large scale event since COVID.
Yeah.
Which is like when the game came out. That's also crazy to think about. Like this game was born literally right before shutdown started. October.
Yeah.
Right before shutdowns. It's wild.
Yeah, we're in the 4th set and we had a 900 person event. Well, we're not even in the 4th set. We're in Monarch is the 4th set. So we're going into the 5th set. Yeah, and we're at a 900 person event. That's wild.
It's crazy. And like I've seen stuff like that before with GPs, because like Magic GPs were like the thing to go to. Like grind side events, have tons of fun. Friday to Sunday, just side event, side event, side event. Or you could do main event if it was your format of choice. Which hopefully will have a little bit more variance in like formats for the callings and stuff. Like sealed is cool. That's what the next 2 are going to be for the US. Classic Constructed was really fun to do for this one, because it feels like you're playing like real competitive Flesh and Blood, whereas like sealed you're kind of limited by whatever your packs tell you can play.
Yeah, I think so I guess this kind of moves into our Tales of Aria discussion a bit, but because the next calling is in
Dallas.
But what month?
October.
Yeah, so we will still be
I
in
think,
Aria
yeah.
at that point. So it'll be an Aria sealed event, which
I think
going back to
it might be Monarch.
Monarch.
I think it's still Monarch for that one. I'm not 100% sure though.
If it's Monarch, I think it's a little more balanced, but I think if it's Aria, it might be a tad bit unbalanced. Because art, like, I don't know if you guys have played in the Aria pre-releases yet, but we've been fortunate enough to have 2 locally, plus the world premiere, and so we've had quite a bit of sealed testing with Aria, oddly enough, and Briar is kind of dumb and sealed.
Briar is really good. She has damage that is just naturally unblockable in sealed for the most part. Something that is interesting to note though is both of the other characters have some amount of unblockable damage in the form of Dominate.
That's true, yeah.
So, like,
because
there's just more of it available to Briar with Arcane than there is. Lexi can dominate like literally every turn. It's a little rough for Oldhim, I feel like, because his hero ability is literally just defense, and that's not a great game plan for sealed. It's fine in like class and constructed where you can like play a long game. You can't play a long game in sealed.
Right, yeah.
You got 30 cards.
Yeah, I think Lexi is definitely the runner-up in sealed because of the dominate every turn, and then just the fact that you can play like a pure like lightning deck or a lot of lightning cards if you pull them, and you don't have to just like mono arrow.
Yeah.
Because arrows are hard and sealed.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I do think like Briar is a clear cut like best character for sealed to play.
Yeah, we'll see though. Like, it's a lot of time between now and then.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of different archetypes within sealed that you can essentially build into. So
yeah, I mean,
it'll be cool.
You and I could go on about Briar all day because like we've been theory crafting quite a bit. I know you've got a couple lists you've been working on.
Yeah, it's not often that I deck build because it's just not my favorite
like
thing to do.
Your thing. That's my thing.
But I've already built like 3 Briar lists.
She's pretty snapped. I feel like Briar's gonna have the chain effect for this format, where like people are after it.
Maybe.
It might not be as dominant or dominant as Chain was, but I feel like Briar has the target on her back now. Maybe it's just because people didn't want another Rune Blade. That's probably the reason why, honestly.
Lexi is dominant, so from her bow.
I think you asked about Dominic West.
My Alexa's being dumb.
That was Alexa, our guest, for 5 seconds.
Okay.
But yeah, pre-release super fun. Out of both pre-releases and the world premiere, I played Briar every match except for 2. It was my very first match at the world premiere and my very first match today. Every other match we played Briar. I was like, you know, today maybe we can play Lexi. No. And I had a better pool for Lexi. But like, arrows are awkward, man. It's so awkward. But maybe her hood will fix it.
Yeah, she'll be good and constructed for sure.
Yeah, probably like an ice Lexi taxes, I think will be pretty good once it gets figured out.
I think lightning Lexi is good.
Yeah, I mean,
I think lightning in general is good.
Yeah. It's gonna feel so punishing though to like load up all these like frostbite effects onto your next attack and then shiver dominate your arrow, and then you're just gonna give them like 2 or 3 frostbites. and they're
That's
gonna
fine.
take like 3 damage, and you're just gonna kind of not really fatigue, but like whittle them away into like awkward hands. I do think decks like Rhinar and Levia could be good coming into this format. Rhinar with the Intimidate, because if you intimidate away like their elemental cards and you leave them with just their fuse target,
Block with.
they're either gonna block with it or just base tank like a massive hit. So it's definitely interesting. Like there's gonna be a lot of dynamics to this format, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. So getting into a little bit of the constructed Aria and some of our predictions and sort of like a set review thing. Obviously you said that you think that Briar's kind of going to be top tier for sure. What do you think about the other? I mean, you said Lexi Frostbite seems cool. Oldham, I have not been seeing a lot of talk about, but I do think he's underrated. I just think that the fact that he doesn't have Dominate on his character is a little bit concerning with the Guardian archetype. But
yeah, because that was
maybe
that was like why Bravo was so good. You could just dominate your massive attack.
you can
and
just
then get your
dominate
crush effect.
a crippling crush or something.
But now you're like, hey, I'm swinging for like, what's a normal Guardian size attack? 8?
Yeah.
So swinging for 8. It has like a fuse effect if it hits, but it's not dominated. So
Give me your hand. You're like, okay, that's
or
fine.
like the fuse effect is like, I get a frostbite. I'll just
Well,
pay
the
1
thing-
extra. That's
The
fine.
thing with the dominating, so I was like having a discussion with someone locally, and they were like, well, I'm just gonna, because he got like this new crippling crush type card. I forget what it's called, but it, basically some really nice crush effect.
Oh, is it a Terra Sunder?
Probably. I'm terrible at remembering card names, so
I think it's a M, right? A blue
Probably.
majestic. Yeah, I think it's Terra Sunder.
yeah. So, anyways, it's like crush effect, real bad. You should probably block this, right? And they're like, oh, well, I'm just gonna pummel it and give it plus whatever and make it like 15 coming in for a crush with all these bad things happening. I'm like, the thing is that's fine. That's all good and gross and stuff. But like, if I just have to give you my hand for 1 turn, and then now your every turn after that like is super lackluster, I'll do it because your turn took so much setup that like you're probably not getting another one as long as I pressure you with like just like 3 damage a turn.
Yeah.
And so that's like the problem with Guardian is when you do need to get your crush effect to go off to make a tempo swing, Oldham doesn't have the dominate.
Yep. There's a lot of ways in Ice to give dominate, but like that
It's
involves
conditional.
more setup. Also,
Or it's
yeah,
conditional,
it's
like
conditional.
unless they pay 2. And I'm like, okay, I'll pitch a card.
There's a couple of the Oldham attacks that say like their fuse effect is it gains dominate, I think.
Yeah.
I know there's
but
a
then
couple arrows that do that for Lexi.
So then the issue is like, okay, so now you
now
want to
have
fuse a card.
Yeah.
Plus you need like a pump spell of some sort, pummel or like a buff card the turn before or something. So that's like more setup.
Yeah. Otherwise we armor block.
Plus you have to pitch for this attack somehow. And you can't pitch the card you're fusing with.
Yep.
So that means you basically don't have pummel unless it costs 3 or less as an attack.
Yeah, I don't think Oldham's running pummel.
Right.
I don't think it can afford to. Like, it feels like the elemental heroes can't really afford to play generic cards.
Except for Briar.
Briar can play generic non-attack actions for sure.
Brother, we have a list I'm going to talk about in a minute. Seems pretty degenerate.
Yeah, it's like I hate like continuously talking about Runeblade because like everyone in the game is like over Runeblade at this point. But she's the only character or hero out of this set that doesn't care about having elemental cards. You play two non-attack actions, you get a token that gives your next thing go again. Anything that hits gives you a token that buffs your defense.
Yeah.
Just like they just gave us like an ultra generic hero in a class that now has more support than any other class. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, just to sum up Oldhim though, so we can move on to Briar. I think that Oldhim, my prediction is that the deck type that he plays is going to be like Turtle Tank, where he just like tries to stall everyone out, fatigue them maybe, and then swing like medium-sized attacks all the time, and then hopefully just deck you out essentially. And I think that's just how Oldham's going to play.
Yeah, because basically they can use 3 cards out of their hand to defend, and then just pitch a blue that costs 3 or more and swing a hammer for 4. That's going to be their turn every turn.
The Frosty Hammer.
Yeah, or that one. I don't know what that one's effect is.
It's like give you a frostbite if it touches.
Interesting. Yeah, I know the token one. It's 3 to attack for 3, and if you have a card in your pitch that costs 3 or more, it gets +1, so up to 4. But
yeah,
I mean,
that one's decent.
Yeah,
and then the shield.
Yeah, both shields. You're not gonna play the common shield though in constructed.
No, the
unless you have
shield.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on to Briar, like Tim was saying, you can just run Runeblade cards and still trigger your leader ability or your hero ability, like as many times as you normally would. But the elemental cards are actually pretty good. I think in deck construction, I think that with this game, you've kind of been able to hinge on the side of like, if you play really good, you can do well. But I think going into Aria format, you have to actually construct extremely well for your deck to function well, and you also have to like play well. And so I think practicing deck building is going to be really important in this next set, because I mean, just like the number of ratios of things you had to include are multiplied with fuse targets, elemental attacks, cost,
the actual
pitch.
element to fuse.
The actual element to fuse with from hand.
Making sure you don't run into all red hands.
If you consider how many cards you need in hand to pitch a card, play an attack, and fuse the attack. And then in Briar, you want to play a non-attack as well. So that's a 4-card hand minimum. Unless you play your non-attack afterwards and it's the elemental card you fused with, which then you're probably not like, it's not doing a whole lot most of the time. You're just getting it to trigger some kind of effect, like your sword or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what brings me to the list I was going to talk about, which is we'll probably post it somewhere on Patreon or something. But the Vela Flash list that I built,
pretty spicy.
And honestly, I think Vela Flash is busted and is going to be a format defining card or a deck archetype at the very least.
Yeah.
But essentially, what it says, it's a 1-cost attack for like 3, 4, 5, blue, yellow, red. And then it says Lightning Fuse. If you fuse, you can play your next non-attack action as an instant. Exactly. The attack does not have go again. And that's all it does. What that enables is if you play a non-attack afterwards that has go again, you gain an action point at instant speed. So you can, for example, play Vela Flash, fuse with a lightning card, any non-attack that says go again on it, and then you can then play the non-attack at the reaction step, You can't play it during blocks, so you have to wait till after they block. But then once it goes to attack reactions, you can play it. And then you gain Go Again, so that way you can swing Sword for 2 and 2, Rosetta Thorn, because you've played a non-attack and an attack. Even though it's at instant speed, it's still a non-attack action.
Yeah.
So that's like the basis of the deck, but it has a lot of other interactions. And the second part, because when I was deck building it, so the set is really weird to deck build for, because if you want to run 9, because usually you'll pick like a card, right? Say Chain, for example. You run 9 copies of something that is like the best card, Seeds of Agony, and I think they run like 6 Rift Binds? Or do you
Either
run all
6
9?
or 7. Some lists for playing 1 blue, but traditionally you go 3 red, 3 yellow.
Yeah, so basically you have enough space in Classic Constructed to run 9 copies of whatever your best card is. So for this deck, it's Velaflash. But we want to make good use of that instant speed. And so we're running some really cool Go Again non-attack actions. And literally all the ones I run have Go Again. But the sub package...
Except for 1, I think. Unless you took it out.
Which one?
Toma Fyendel.
Yeah, that's the only one that doesn't, but that card is good for a reason that I'll talk about in a second. So the deck is basically a sub-archetype of tome. Tomes are like the idea. We have the Tome of the Arknight, Tome of Faendal, Gorganian Tome, and then the new Tome of
Harvest.
Earth.
I think it's Tome of the Harvest.
Yeah, the Earth Tome. And so I'm pretty sure you don't have to fuse that card either. It just says bottom deck your arsenal, draw 3, Go Again for 3.
I think I'm gonna double check.
Yeah, so basically the idea is play Velaflash, then flash a tome to, at minimum, give Velaflash Go Again. Then you potentially draw some cards with, like, say, Tome of the Arknight, reveal top 2. If it's an attack and a non-attack, put them both in your hand. So we're going to get this ultra wide turn. And then if we run into more Velaflashes, we can just keep going. Other than that, the deck is lightning core, like mono lightning. So most of those attacks already have Go Again. And then our character, if we play 2 non-attacks, which we've already played 1, we get to make a Go Again on the next attack embodiment of lightning token. So even more Go Again. So the whole idea is like the same thing as what Prism wants to do when they Erudition you or Tome you, is basically pop off on this ultra wide turn that's like enough to make your opponent be in the red zone for the rest of the game. So yeah, that's like the concept, but it has some other cool plays like Velaflash into Plunder Run to draw a card with the Go Again if it hits, and that sort of thing. But I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty spicy list, especially since like you never deck build. When you sent me that, I was like, all right, Caleb, I see you. I see you.
I have a process. It just takes me a long time. I have to read like the whole card pool and then figure out what I'm doing. So it's not just like clicking and adding things.
Yeah. I feel like the other Briar list we'll see probably early on is just like the Earth Briar, where you go like Earthlore Surge to give +5, and then like some other non-attack action like Bramble Spark. You go Bramble Spark, fuse Earthlore Surge, play the Earthlore Surge, and then just play an attack. You pitch a blue for that. That's your whole hand. But now the attack's going to deal 1 arcane, and it's going to have like +9. Or what's Red Bramble Sparks +3, right? It'll be +8 and have Go Again.
Yes, I believe so.
And since you pitched a blue, as long as your attack costs 0, you can still come in with Rosetta Thorn. for 4 more. Which is pretty
Right.
disgusting, but like that's not like a magical Christmas land hand for like the Bramble Spark versions of the deck. 'Cause
Yeah, I built
Bramble Sparks, it's gonna be like your seeds for Briar.
Yeah.
You're playing all 9. Like that's happening.
in the Earth version.
Maybe even in the non-Earth versions, because you don't have to fuse. The fuse only gives a buff.
Yeah, I just don't play it in. Well, do I play it in
Probably
Vanilla Flash?
not in Vela Flash.
Let me check.
I mean, it is
so
a
in my-
0 cost non-attack that like just gives you incidental damage through the arcane.
Yeah, which triggers a lot of the Earth attacks. Specifically, what's that one called? Stir the Wildwood. If you've done
Oh,
arcane damage,
yeah.
it's +2, and
Base
then fuse
5.
+2,
Yeah, you can get
So the
that
red one's-
bad boy up to
9.
9 base without.
With a Bramble Spark, it's 13 or 12. I mean, sorry, 13
12,
because of the arcane. That's big,
It's gross.
big boy numbers.
Yeah, Briar
Um,
can hit numbers that Runeblade should not be able to hit as a class.
Yeah, and if you double Bramble Spark first, then
Yes, that's
you'd have
gross.
you'd have to have a 5-card hand.
You can Bramble from Arsenal.
Yeah, but you still need an Earth Fuse for all 3 of those cards.
Mhm.
So you have to pitch you don't have to pitch right away, but you need an Earth card and at least a yellow pitch in hand.
Yep.
So you go Bramble Spark, Fuse, Bramble Spark, Fuse, Stir, pitching the yellow, Fuse, and it's coming in for 6, 15 with 2 arcane and go again. And if
That's
that's-
disgusting.
If the pitch is blue, you can swing sword afterwards
Yeah.
for 2 and 2.
Briar's disgusting, bro. She's-
That's
Yeah. And like
yeah.
I love playing Runeblade. I've played both of the other 2, Viscerai and Chain. Briar's disgusting. I feel like the ceiling is like way higher than the ceiling for Chain was on damage
is.
potential.
But Briar has a huge problem of its massive hands require 5 cards. And so if
Yeah.
you get disrupted into not having enough pitch for like a frostbite trigger, or if you are forced to block, or if you like they discard trigger you or something, because ice has some like on defense discard a card type things, it could be a little weird. But
Yeah.
that's where the other cards come in that Chain also runs, which is called the Holy Trinity, which is just E-Strike, Command and Conquer, and Art of War. Because
Art of War's also busted with Briar. With
Yes,
with her specialization specifically.
yeah, that's another list I'm
That's
gonna make
snap.
into yeah, that's something I've been working on in my brain. But yeah, if you have a 2-card hand, I mean, there's nothing better than E-Strike for 7 pass.
Literally nothing.
Seems pretty good. Except Chain was better because his 2-card hand is actually like a 7-card hand when he has like 5 shackles.
Yeah. If you could get Chain down to 0 cards, then you were definitely sitting pretty for that turn. Like, I'll keep a 1-card hand with Chain. I'll give you everything except the blue card, because then at least I can play out of my banish with a blue.
Right. Right.
I do feel like with Tails, it's gonna force the Chain deck to be built differently. I don't think Chain's gonna be able to play so red heavy.
I think
They'll have to
Chain's-
slow down.
I think they're also going to just start playing 73 and just always play 73.
Maybe. I mean, I never stayed at 60 in any game.
Yeah.
Like mirror match style games, I went, or like mid-range mirrors, aggro mirrors, I went up to like 65. I would just bring cards in. Whether it was like I need blue cards to pitch, or like Crossroads, or it's a match where Flock was good because I had Flock in my sideboard, not in the main deck. We never stayed at 60. We were always above. So it was like I'm either playing 65 or 73. Like there wasn't really any in between.
Yeah.
I definitely think decks are gonna have to be built a little more blue and yellow heavy now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even in sealed, I was running 10-10-10 blue, yellow, red because I knew Oldhim and Lexi were a thing. Because they're literally the other two things in the set. And I didn't want to get stuck into a frostbite lock or something in sealed where Oldham's like, here's a frostbite. Here's another one. Here's 5 frostbites. And then I was like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So
We'll see
having
what
extra
happens,
resources is good. Couple things I wanted to touch on with Briar before we move on to finish up with Lexi was pretty much everyone's been saying Rosetta Thorn is the best sword, and while it's definitely the best at face value, and like if you get to play your your 2 minimum cards, attack, non-attack, and then swing, I think that Duskblade has an extremely high ceiling that might actually be good in like maybe the Earth build, because the Earth build is not like 90% of the time not going to require like a huge hand.
Yeah, you'll just go like non-attack, attack.
Yeah, but if you get to, I think that build should focus a little more on double non-attack into attack, because then you could swing Duskblade. So like say swing Duskblade, get a +1, and then if you're racing, like the Earth build's gonna win the race in like 70% of its games, I would say.
Yeah,
because it's at that point you're just like better Dorinthia.
Yeah,
because the blade doesn't have to hit to get the +1, nor does it lose it only loses the +1s if you have no hand or if you draw a bad hand.
Yeah, I definitely think Duskblade is gonna be better in chain than anywhere else.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, he basically never doesn't do what it asks.
Yeah. We'll see with Briar. I still think Rosetta Thorn's gonna be the go-to, just because it's so easy to do what it wants, and you basically get a free 2 arcane damage every turn.
Yeah, I mean, just theory crafting a bit right now though, like, so if you dealt 4 every turn from turn 1 onward with Rosetta Thorn, but say they had Null Rune, right? Because people are going to start running Null Runes. Let's just say they block like the 2 arcane and then take the 2. So you're cutting your damage in half. Let's say through turn 8, right? So you're dealing 16 damage with the sword. If you Duskblade and they block the same amount of damage, so 2 per turn, but you trigger the +1 token every turn, you're going, what is it? Math is hard sometimes.
Yeah,
so they're blocking.
The only thing is though, like, to make Null Rune effective against Briar, you have to be running 2.
Yeah.
Which means you're just gonna get smacked by all the non-arcane damage.
Well, I mean, that's certain classes too, because certain classes don't have any armor block, realistically.
Because, like, with Chain, almost all of the arcane was single source. Single source is 1 damage. With the exception of, like, Invert, I think was, like, the Invert and Vexing Malice. Only cards in the entire list. Briar has it on her weapon.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're gonna play Null Rune 2, that's 2 pieces of armor that you cannot block with.
Right.
And if we're on the Earth build, like, yeah, Earth has a lot of incidental arcane damage, but it also has massive physical attacks.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of merit for it, for the Duskblade.
Oh, definitely. It's an insane
'Cause-
weapon.
Once you get like 3-4 tokens, like swinging for 6 a turn is wild. It's just punishing if you get a bad turn.
Yeah, that weapon, it feels like it solves the fatigue problem.
Especially for chain. Because
Yeah.
it's like, okay,
It's
you're gonna
like-
fatigue me, but I have
But now my sword
a-
swings for like 12,
yeah.
which requires your entire hand.
Right. And you can give it go again in chain.
Yep.
So
It's nutty. Definitely for chain, Duskblade is gonna be the way, I feel like. Nebula Blade, 3rd place now. I think both Duskblade and Rosetta Thorn are just better.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think that kind of sums up Briar for now, at least. I mean, obviously there's a few more builds, like the generic hybrid build that's probably, I think, is going to be the most popular, just because everyone wants to run all the available cards to every character. But I also think that the skew builds will be better as far as results go, because they'll have better matchups versus some things and slightly worse versus other things, which tends to win tournaments more often. But moving on to Lexi, I was talking with my brother about Lexi, and I think there's a lot of, like this Ranger effect that people say of like, oh, Azalea's trash, so Lexi's also
stigma.
trash. Yeah, stigma is a good word for it. So like, yeah, Lexi's trash because Ranger's trash. But I actually really think, looking at the card pool, that that's not the case. Specifically with Lightning Lexi, Ice Lexi will be a typical Ranger deck where they have a cool arrow with these cool hit effects that they dominate and then come in for like 8 or something with dominate, and you get the hit trigger and it kind of sucks. But I just don't think it'll put out quite enough damage to really win games, unless like you can do the thing every single turn of like, here's 3 damage past,
Yeah.
after dominating. So like say 8, and then on average you're coming in for like 5 to 3 damage or whatever. And then like if the arrow says give that many frostbites or something, like if you could do that every single turn, pretty good. But I think as far as the better build is going to be like an aggro Lightning Lexi build, because most of the lightning attacks have go again and aren't arrows. So you can like
That's true.
attack arrow, or like basically like attack. I don't know if any of the arrows have go again. A lot of them do, but they're not like great hit effects.
It's like a fuse effect to give go again.
Okay, so then that works better for attack with arrow, fuse with one of the lightning cards, then play the lightning card, play the other lightning card,
Yeah.
pass, basically. So like 3 attacks, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah. Or like if you just have a lightning card in arsenal, you can use Lexi's ability to flip it up. Gives your next attack go again, regardless. If the lightning card is an attack, you just play it, get it out of your arsenal, so you can use Shiver if you're using Shiver. Otherwise, I don't know the things for Voltaire, but I feel like Shiver is gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, Shiver is good. Dominate on a stick is pretty solid. I mean, for only 1 cost, it's nice.
Yeah, the
I think-
Voltaire is definitely better with the new hood though, because you can load both slots. I don't know what
Yes,
the
you could-
effects are off the top of my head though.
I mean, just for hypothetical effects, right? You could have like an ice or a lightning card in your arsenal that you just flip up, and then load another card face down, whether it be, and then you switch out the lightning card for like an arrow, and then fire the arrow, and then The other card would be a Earth or Lightning card, or sorry, Ice or Lightning to flip up to get whatever Lexi effect you wanted.
Yeah.
So it seems a little trickier to actually play, but pretty good for, like high skill potential.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It just feels like because your class attacks have to be played from your arsenal, it's like an extra step you have to jump, like a hoop you have to jump through just to play your attacks. That's kind of why like I feel like the ice build is gonna be maybe more consistent and more it played more, because you only have to worry about getting one attack off. If you didn't have to worry about like loading your arrows into arsenal, lightning would definitely be better, like by a large margin.
Yeah, I just think that like in this game specifically, when your deck has a status quo that you're meeting every game on average and you're like hyper consistent, that you're only going to win some matchups, and like you might make top cut, but you're not going to do extremely well. So like the deck I'm comparing Ice Lexi to in my mind is like Dorinthia, where like everyone knows what Dorinthia is going to do. They for the most part kind of know like she's going to swing sword with a buff and some reprise stuff, but that's pretty much it.
Yep.
And I think that's why Dorinthia, like, unless you make a spicy build that has some random cards in it, like Flock or whatever, it kind of just performs average every tournament and doesn't really shake too many things up.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I feel about Ice as like an element, just because it doesn't really have that high of a ceiling. It just is going to be like...
Yeah, it's definitely meant to like slow the game down.
Right. So it'll have to have a different like win condition type thing in my mind.
Yeah, definitely all like theory. None of it's really been put into practice yet outside of sealed.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. These is just kind of our thoughts coming from a competitive player standpoint from multiple games. I don't know. I definitely like Briar's gonna be like top 2 or 3 of the food chain, easy.
maybe.
Oldham,
I still don't know yet.
I think Oldham will be popular early on, and then it'll die off like rapidly.
Oldham does what Bravo does against Chain against everybody.
Except it can't crush. No crushes, which is like the reason to play Bravo.
Well, I mean, against Chain, Bravo was basically just trying to fatigue and then swing like once throughout the game. And so I think Oldham does that every turn or every game. He's just like, if you don't take my hand, I will just try and block.
And then Lexi is definitely a better ranger hero.
Undecided on how good she's going to be, though.
We'll see. I feel like she's more of the rogue pick out of the 3.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah. Definitely want to know your guys' thoughts on the new heroes. One last question that I actually just thought of was, if you were going to pick one hero to, let's just say Chain aside, one hero from the old characters to rise up to be dominant in the format, what would you pick? I've already said some of my ideas.
Like who do we want, or who do we realistically think could do that?
Yeah, what deck do you think Tales of Aria is going to gatekeep to pave the road for an older deck to become king?
I feel feel like Viscerai gets put into a really good position because like most of the turns with Viscerai, you just play one card and pass.
OCK specifically.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the Viscerai deck in a nutshell. Yeah, like even with the entrance of like Frostbites, it really doesn't hurt Viscerai like at all.
Yeah.
It didn't really do much anyways.
Right.
Yeah, I think that or one of the two brutes, I definitely think get moved up a notch or two. What about you?
I think Prism actually becomes like the best tier 1 deck, and it's kind of like a hot take. It's actually a huge hot take because I mean Prism obviously is already good. It won the Calling Las Vegas, sort of. I mean it did win, but it, like people don't think it like it didn't. He just blocked out.
The dude built the deck specifically to just let Chain deck out.
Right, and he saw like 8 chains. So
yeah, he played out of we were talking about this earlier. He played, what was it, 7 plus 4 is 11, and then quarters, semis, finals, 14 rounds. So out of 14 rounds, he played against 8 chains and only lost once.
yeah, so
It was 7-1 against chain. And then
pretty good Swiss matchups.
Yeah.
I would say, for that deck. But going into Aria format, we have Oldhim and Lexi with Frostbites, which is going to make chains slow down and take more time, but it'll still mill itself out in the same amount of time unless they just don't shackle on a turn, which I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
not often that you just don't shackle. It does happen though.
And so Aura Prism, which has a good matchup against like most decks that have setup turns because of ALS and like its natural go wide strategy, I think has a really good matchup into Frostbites because they're instant speed, so I can do it whenever I need to. And then if you're going on a massive turn, I can just like say no, your turn is skipped. And then it can also specifically counter Briar in the sense of the arcane damage, so like it doesn't need to run Arcane Barrier 2. It could just run like 1 and be okay.
Just make shields.
Exactly.
Which the shields also are pretty good against a lot of the non-Briar elemental attacks. The Briar ones don't really care if they hit to do something. A lot of the like arrows, the Lexi and Oldhim ones care about hitting to do their effect.
Yeah. And then the other 2 points for why I think Prism is going to be really good next set is none of the most of the earth attacks are actually like 5 base. Besides a few of the like generic vanilla trash ones, but you probably still run those in mono earth anyways.
Ones that come in for 7.
Yeah, like 3 for 7 or whatever, but they have no effects.
Yeah.
But the thing is if so like Briar, for example, if she blocks with that attack, she now doesn't attack with that attack, which makes her turn really awkward.
Yeah.
So she's probably not going to block a Herald with that attack. Lexi just doesn't naturally have like hardly any 6 power arrows.
I don't think there are any at all.
Right. And then Oldhim obviously has plenty of 6 power stuff, but like you just go auras against that, which is fine. It works totally fine. And so and then the third thing I wanted to bring up was one of our locals was saying that, oh, well, I'll just frostbite you and you can't pay 6 for your ALS. And I was like, okay,
it's instant speed.
First off, it's instant speed. I can do it in response. Second off, if I have like 1 frostbite and I have a wide board and they're like, oh, well, your 0 attack now cost 1 or 2, Okay, thanks. You just gave me an out to the scenario where I have no soul. I have this super wide board, and I have a yellow card in my hand, and no way to pitch it.
Yep.
Now I do. I can pitch it to Frostbite and swing with my entire board, and make all the Frostbites go away.
Yep.
Which
Yeah,
I think
Frostbite's
is
not a great answer for Prism.
yeah. So I think Prism's going to be really good next set.
Yeah. Let's go for the reverse of your question. Decks that we think Aria pushes out.
Dash.
Yep. I'm also going with Dash.
I think Dash is, fine into Briar and Lexi, but I think Frostbite Lexi gives it trouble because that has a lot of actions with loading and that sort of stuff. And then not Bravo. Oldhim. It's
his shield.
Icy Bravo. His shield, obviously, that everyone's pointed out, you can pay one, and then block for 2 the whole turn. So, like, the only way Dash gets in is if they have a Purifier, which, if they're doing their correct game plan, they should have a Purifier. So, I don't know that matchup will be as terrible as people say. If you get, I think, honestly, you just get Purifier in that matchup. Like, with Dash. Like, if I swing for 2 twice and you just block it for, like, basically nothing, I'd rather just swing for 3 once and make you pitch a card for your shield and then be like, okay, cool, I'm my turn's done. I'm already done.
Yeah, I definitely think Dash gets knocked down a bit. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some interesting points. And again, and any of you listeners or viewers, let us know what you guys think. Older decks that are gonna get bumped up, you think, in the new format, and any decks you think that are gonna get bumped down. Let us know what y'all think.
We're curious.
But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up the Tales pre-releases and most of our Vegas experience.
Yep. It was fun. Super fun.
Anything you wanted to add in before we close out?
Nope, I'm good.
Alrighty. I guess the only other thing is we do have our TCG player affiliate link that'll be in the description, as well as a couple other links. If you guys would like to support, please drop us a like, a follow, whatever you guys feel like, comments. We appreciate everything you guys do and the time you guys spend listening and watching.
All right, this is Sideboard Gaming checking out.
See ya.
Bye.